want to go through the characters that are pretty much a given to be in a base roster of Mortal Kombat 1 because of the other characters that have been confirmed already, but keep in mind this is simply speculation. But first, let's look at our meme for today. Ed Boon confirms that there has never been a Mortal Kombat game before Mortal Kombat 1, and you're all being insane. Why is it called Mortal Kombat 1? Because it's the first ever Mortal Kombat game? Now this article is 100% false, but it's pretty freaking funny. I will leave the link in the description if you want to read through it. There's some pretty fake Ed Boon quotes in there like, "Are you implying that we already released games in that series? Seriously?" I don't know, I just think it's funny. I am sticking to my guns, I will die on this hill. They should have named this game Mortal Kombat 12. It is so freaking confusing. If you want to look up something for Mortal Kombat 1, 1992, I know it's called Mortal Kombat, but it's still the first game, then only videos of this new reboot will come up and it's so freaking annoying, dude. Alright, so as we know, the timeline has been reset, meaning that all the classic characters we know and love have a high chance of getting a whole new origin in the story mode of this game. We don't know if the origins will be similar or completely different, but Ed Boon did tweet this out. Lots of origin stuff, he said. But if you need a refresh on MK lore before continuing with this video, or if you're new to the franchise, I made a lore video explaining this timeline, so go watch that one if you need to, because I will go into the lore of a lot of the characters in this video. So going off of that, we can predict the base roster based on who's connected to the characters that have already been revealed lore-wise. And again, I know things might change, but I don't think it'll be drastic to the point where like Sonya is now Bo' Rai Cho's apprentice kind of change, you know? So Mileena and Kitana. Now they could potentially confirm a bunch of characters. As we know from their lore, Shao Kahn invades Edenia and becomes emperor, taking them as daughters, quote unquote. Well, taking Kitana in as his daughter and then creating Mileena, and then lying to Kitana about Mileena and saying she's her long lost sister, and then they live as a big dysfunctional family. So I think Shao Kahn has an extremely good chance of being in the base roster if the story will revisit this origin story. And because of this, Sindel is also pretty much a given for the base roster. Not only is she Kitana's mother, but she has been heavily retconned over the years, and I wonder what direction they will go with her story, because the last version of her from their rebooted timeline was very much hated by fans. I personally hope they stick with the original lore, but change it so that Sindel openly defies Shao Kahn along with Kitana. They could do a lot with these four characters story-wise. Jade could also be a solid pick for the base roster, as she is Kitana's bodyguard, protector, and a very good friend in Mortal Kombat lore. She has also assisted Kitana when she chose to turn against Shao Kahn upon finding out he had used her DNA to create grotesque clones of herself. So them being BFFs puts Jade at a very high chance of being in the story as well as the base roster of Mortal Kombat 1. And if anything, you know, she definitely could be a cameo fighter. Now let's move on to Johnny Cage. He wasn't shown in the trailer, as most of you are aware, but he was confirmed on the official Mortal Kombat 1 site in the fact section, which is pretty funny, all things considered. One of the most NRS things they've done since the release. Y'all MK fans know what I mean. Now his inclusion in the game could actually confirm a lot of characters. Johnny's story always revolves around annoying Sonya Blade to death and somehow charming her and making her fall in love with him. And they go on to create the most wonderful character in Mortal Kombat history, well, apart from Mileena, Cassie Cage. Now, I don't see Cassie being base roster here unless the story is like just a bunch of time jumps over the years, but honestly, we don't have enough info to say, and most likely we won't know until we play it, right? And I know leakers, you know, I say that in quotation marks, have said some stuff about Cassie, but if the Combat Pack 1 leak is correct, then the Combat Kids could definitely come back as DLC, because DLC characters don't have to be relevant to the story or to the timeline. I'm also extremely confident in speculating that if Johnny makes it, then Sonya Blade definitely will make it in, which means Jax also makes it, because his story is very much intertwined with Sonya's. Jax is also a member of the Special Forces, who was Sonya's superior during the Outworld tournament in the reboot, but then Sonya surpassed him and became general. Either these roles will change, be reversed, or it'll be relatively the same, but I have a strong feeling they both will be on this base roster, along with Sonya's mortal enemy, Kano. I believe he also has a very good chance of being featured in the story and the base roster. I mean, come on, he's the OG villain whose lore is also very much connected with Sonya Blade and the Special Forces as a whole, as they have a rivalry that's been alive and well even in Mortal Kombat 11 story mode. If Sonya is in this game, I definitely see Kano also being in. Moving on to Shang Tsung now. His story is very much connected to a lot of the big bads and villains in Mortal Kombat lore, the most obvious one being Quan Chi. Now, Quan Chi was in an official Combat Pack 1 leak from Amazon Italy, and it's a bit weird saying unofficial and Amazon in the same sentence because it was like an official Amazon pre-order listing for the game, so I'm inclined to believe that it's true. But regardless of that, Shang and Quan have a long history, and they are known together as the Deadly Alliance, who murdered Liu Kang in the game of the same name during the 3D era of Mortal Kombat games. So I believe there is a really strong chance we're going to see this alliance be revived in this timeline, as I really don't believe that Shang Tsung would take on Fire God Liu Kang by himself. He's going to need people to back him up. Let's say perhaps a certain cult. Now that said, Quan Chi's inclusion could not only confirm Shinnok, but also the Brotherhood of Shadows cult. There are a ton of characters who have been featured as being part of this cult over the years, and by a ton I mean like at least 10, like Ashra, Tanya, Noob Saibot, Serena, Reiko, and Devora. If we see the creation of the Brotherhood of Shadows in MK1 storyline, then I believe the true big bad will be Shinnok once again. So that means that many of those characters listed above, save from Noob Saibot, who I don't think will be in the story mode of this game because I just don't see Scorpion killing Sub-Zero this time around, I believe they could all actually be on the main roster. Although, because of the inclusion of cameos in this game as the main gameplay mechanic, gameplay gimmick if you will, a lot of them could also be downgraded to being assists. Out of all of those, I personally think Reiko, Quan Chi, Shinnok, Tanya have a strong chance of making the base roster. Shinnok and Tanya haven't been in since KX, as well as Quan Chi, and Reiko hasn't been in since the 3D era. And I could see some of the others being DLC as either main fighters or cameos. Now Reiko is a pretty popular pick for the main roster this time around. He was the general of Shao Kahn's army, so I think it would make sense for him to be in the story if we're exploring origins again, especially if we're exploring Shao Kahn's origin along with Sindel, Kitana, Mileena, and all of those people. You know, he would fit nicely in with all of those. But those are my thoughts, at least if I rationalize lore versus the story and who might be in a reboot of this story. I think the roster could have Quan Chi, Ashra, Tanya, Reiko, Shinnok, Sonya, Shao Kahn, Sindel, Devora, Serena, and Kano. So what do you guys think? Am I smoking that copium with all those 3D era characters? Or do you think they actually have a chance of coming back? Let me know in the comments below, and as usual, have yourself a wonderful day, and I'll see you all very soon.